In the eerie heart of a dense forest, where moonlight barely pierced the thick canopy above, I found myself wandering deeper and deeper into a realm of shadows. The air was heavy with silence, and the only sound was the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. An unnatural chill gripped my bones as I ventured into the unknown, a place where the trees seemed to whisper secrets that only the bravest dared to decipher. I had always been fascinated by stories of cryptids and legends of the unknown. That fascination led me to explore the untouched wilderness, searching for evidence of creatures that existed only in the realms of myth. On this particular night, as I ventured further than ever before, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of trepidation in my gut. The forest was unlike any I had encountered before, filled with towering trees, their branches reaching out like bony fingers, threatening to ensnare anyone who dared tread too close. As I walked, the leaves on the ground rustled with an unnatural intensity, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My flashlight provided little comfort, its feeble beam pushing back the encroaching darkness just enough to see the trail ahead. Long time passed as I pressed on, my steps becoming heavier, my senses more alert. That's when I heard it. It was a guttural, otherworldly sound that sent shivers down my spine. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and I froze in place. I strained my ears, trying to pinpoint the source of the eerie noise. Then it came again, but it was closer this time, like a mix between a mournful wail and a low growl. My heart raced, and I knew I had to make a decision. Should I turn back, or should I press on, driven by curiosity and the hope of uncovering the unknown? The latter won out, and with trembling legs, I took a deep breath and resumed my journey deeper into the enigmatic forest. The forest grew denser, and the darkness around me seemed to intensify. The moon, now obscured by thick clouds, offering no solace. Every step felt like an eternity, and my mind played tricks on me. I imagined sinister forms moving at the periphery of my vision, lurking just beyond the reach of my flashlight's beam. Then, as I trudged along, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. Half buried in the undergrowth was a footprint, an enormous, humanoid footprint with long, gnarled toes. The enormity of the find left me staggered. This was no ordinary wildlife track, it was something massive, something that shouldn't exist. I knelt down to examine it, my heart pounding in my chest, and as I did, a realization hit me like a sledgehammer. The stories were true. This was a sign of the legendary creature that had eluded humanity for centuries, the Sasquatch. The discovery sent chills through my spine, but my determination to uncover the truth only grew stronger. As I continued my exploration, the forest seemed to grow more hostile. Strange and distant noises filled the air, and the shadows closed in around me, suffocating and menacing. My flashlight flickered, and panic welled up inside me, and I quickened my pace, driven by an insatiable desire to find answers. My journey led me deeper into the heart of the forest, and it was there that I stumbled upon a clearing, bathed in the ghostly glow of a pale, crescent moon. In the center of the clearing stood an enormous figure. It was covered in matted, dark fur, and it was looking right at me. My heart seized in my chest as I met the creature's piercing eyes. They were unlike any I had ever seen, holding an intelligence that struck fear into my very core. The Sasquatch was massive, easily over 7 feet tall, and it radiated a raw, primal power. It stood there, unmoving, as if assessing my presence. For what felt like an eternity, we stood locked in a silent, it was a terrifying stare-down. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee from this enigmatic and unearthly being, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I was in the presence of something that defied belief, something that no one would believe without concrete evidence. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the Sasquatch turned and melted back into the forest, disappearing into the shroud of darkness. I was left trembling and awestruck, my heart started pounding like a drum. The encounter had been surreal, and I knew that no one would ever truly understand the magnitude of what I had experienced. With shaky legs, I retraced my steps, back through the labyrinthine forest, until I finally emerged into the safety of the moonlit night. The world outside was once again familiar, but my mind was forever altered. I had ventured into the depths of the unknown and come face to face with the legendary Sasquatch, a creature that existed on the fringes of human understanding. As I sit here by the crackling fire, the memories of that fateful night in the woods still haunt my dreams. It was a night like any other, or so I thought, when my friends and I decided to go camping in the dense, dark woods of the Pacific Northwest. Little did we know that we were about to have a terrifying encounter with the legendary creature known as Bigfoot. The forest was eerily quiet that evening, the air thick with a palpable sense of foreboding. We had chosen a remote spot, far away from civilization, to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. There were 4 of us, and we had pitched our tents in a small clearing surrounded by towering, ancient trees. A babbling brook glistened nearby, providing the soothing sounds of nature as a backdrop to our campfire stories and laughter. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, we gathered around the fire, sharing ghost stories to set the mood. The warmth of the flames was comforting, and we chuckled nervously, trying to shake off the growing unease that seemed to permeate the forest around us. Little did we know that we were not alone. It started with a rustling in the underbrush, just beyond the circle of light cast by our campfire. At first, we dismissed it as a curious raccoon or a wandering deer. But the rustling grew louder and closer, and we could sense something watching us from the shadows. Our laughter faded into uneasy silence as we strained our ears to identify the source of the disturbance. Suddenly, a pungent, foul odor filled the air, overpowering the natural scents of the forest. It was a smell like nothing I had ever encountered before, a sickening mix of rotting meat and wet fur. We gagged and covered our noses, but the stench only grew stronger, almost suffocating us. Out of the darkness, a shadowy figure emerged. It was tall and massive. It loomed on 2 legs, resembling a monstrous, hulking man covered in matted, dark hair. Its eyes, glowing with an eerie, malevolent light, fixed on us. Fear gripped our hearts as we realized that we were face to face with the creature that legend spoke of, Bigfoot. I cannot adequately describe the sheer terror that coursed through me in that moment. The creature let out a guttural, inhuman growl, and I could see the glistening white of its sharp teeth as it bared them in a menacing snarl. It was as if we had trespassed into its territory, and it regarded us as a threat. Without a second thought, we scrambled to our feet, abandoning our campfire and tents, and fled into the darkness, guided only by the weak beams of our flashlights. The creature pursued us, crashing through the underbrush with unnerving speed and agility for something of its size. It let out blood-curdling howls that sent shivers down our spines. I stumbled over tree roots and rocks, the fear and adrenaline propelling me forward. My heart pounded in my chest, and my breath came in ragged gasps. We had no idea where we were headed, but the only thing that mattered was putting as much distance between us and the creature as possible. Our flashlights flickered and died one by one, plunging us into near total darkness. The only sound was the relentless pursuit of the creature, the crashing of branches and its menacing growls growing closer. We were disoriented and on the verge of sheer panic when we stumbled upon a small cave entrance. Desperation and fear drove us inside, and we huddled together, our breathless sobs echoing off the cold, damp walls. We prayed that the creature would lose our scent, that it would give up and return to the depths of the forest. But the night seemed interminable, the minutes stretching into hours as we waited in that dark, damp cave. At long last, the growls and rustling faded into the distance, and the oppressive presence of Bigfoot seemed to recede. We dared not leave the cave, though, until the first light of dawn broke through the entrance. With trembling hands and shaky legs, we emerged, and our campsite was deserted, save for the remnants of our hastily abandoned tents. We packed up what little remained, leaving behind most of our belongings, and hiked back to civilization in grim silence. The encounter with Bigfoot had left an indelible mark on our souls, a reminder of the vast unknown that still exists in the wilderness. I don't know what that creature truly was, whether it was a creature of flesh and blood or something beyond our understanding. But I do know that I will never forget the night when I came face to face with the legendary Bigfoot and the primal fear that still lingers in the depths of my mind. As the sun dipped below the jagged peaks of the snowy mountains, casting an eerie, purple hue over the landscape, I found myself embroiled in a chilling encounter that would forever haunt my dreams. My journey to the remote wilderness had begun with a simple desire to escape the chaos of everyday life, but it soon transformed into a nightmarish ordeal. I had ventured deep into the heart of the snowy mountains, lured by the promise of solitude and untouched beauty. The crisp mountain air bit at my face as I trudged through the snow, my breath visible in the freezing temperatures. The forest was silent, save for the occasional rustle of pine needles underfoot and the haunting echo of the wind through the trees. For days, I explored the vast expanse of this wintry wilderness, my heart filled with a sense of awe and tranquility. But on the fourth day, I stumbled upon something that would shatter that peace and leave me trembling with fear. I had been following a set of mysterious tracks in the snow, tracks that were unlike any I had seen before. They were enormous, almost the size of a man's torso, and they left a deep imprint in the snow, suggesting a tremendous weight. My curiosity drove me deeper into the forest, despite the warning signs that seemed to scream at me from the depths of my mind. As I followed the tracks deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and the world seemed to close in around me. It was as if the trees themselves were closing ranks, hiding me from whatever had left those enormous footprints. The setting sun cast eerie shadows among the trees, making me feel like I was being watched. I moved cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest, and my senses on high alert. The wind seemed to whisper secrets, and the forest floor crackled with an unsettling energy. My breath formed clouds in the frosty air, and I could hear the rapid beat of my own pulse. That's when I first saw it. It was a towering, dark silhouette obscured by the trees, its massive form moving with an unnatural grace. It was Bigfoot, the legendary creature of the wilderness, the stuff of campfire tales and blurry photographs. It was real, and it was right before my eyes. My instincts screamed at me to run, to flee from this monstrous figure, but I was frozen in place, unable to tear my gaze away from the creature. Its eyes, large and expressive, met mine with a mix of curiosity and something else, a glint of intelligence that sent a shiver down my spine. We stood there, a mere 20 feet apart, in a frozen tableau of fear and fascination. My mind raced with thoughts of escape, but I couldn't move. It felt as if time itself had stopped, and I was trapped in this otherworldly moment. The creature took a step closer, its massive footfalls crunching in the snow. I could see it more clearly now, covered in shaggy, matted hair that blended seamlessly with the surrounding trees. Its arms were long and powerful, and its face, while bearing a resemblance to a human, was far more primal and wild. My breathing quickened, and I could feel the sweat freezing on my forehead. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to flee, but an inexplicable curiosity kept me rooted to the spot. I needed to know more about this mysterious creature. As if sensing my inner conflict, the creature emitted a low, rumbling growl. It was a sound that vibrated through my entire body, a warning to stay away. But it also carried a hint of melancholy, a mournful note that touched my soul. It was as though the creature's world was one of solitude and isolation, just as I had sought in these remote mountains. In that moment, I made a fateful decision. I took a cautious step forward, my hand outstretched in a gesture of peace. The creature's eyes followed my movement, its growl softening ever so slightly. It seemed to acknowledge my intention, even if it remained wary. For what felt like an eternity, we stood there, separated by a few feet and a lifetime of misunderstanding. In those moments, I glimpsed a glimpse of the profound mystery that surrounded this creature. It was not a mindless monster, but a sentient being, one that had managed to evade the eyes of civilization for centuries. But just as I began to think that I could bridge the gap between our worlds, something changed in the creature's eyes. A glimmer of darkness overtook its gaze, and it let out a deafening roar that reverberated through the forest. It was a roar that shattered the silence and echoed through the mountains, a declaration of its untamed power. I stumbled back in terror, my heart started racing, and the creature, with one last, mournful look, turned and vanished into the dense underbrush. I was left standing alone in the fading light, the chilling echoes of its roar still ringing in my ears. The encounter with Bigfoot in the snowy mountains had forever altered my perception of the world. It was a chilling, haunting experience that left me with more questions than answers.